Welcome everybody to our Future Beauty Talk. Today we have a special guest, Belinda Kirkpatrick, and together Belinda and I are going to discuss the topic of hormones and the way that hormones affect our life on a daily basis and our health. So it's a really interesting and fascinating subject. I'm Frank Salm, the CEO of Vital Plus, and I welcome you to our meeting. Before we get started, let me introduce you to Belinda. Belinda is a naturopath and a nutritionist. She has a master's degree in reproductive health. Belinda is also the creator of an app called Seed, SEED, and this app is a tracker on your period and fertility. So it's a great app to have if you're looking to become pregnant, or if you want to track how regular your cycle is. She's also the author of a book called Healthy Hormones and a practical guide to balancing your hormones. It's a fascinating book if you really want to start to understand and educate yourself on what it takes to have a good, healthy hormonal balance. Then this is the book that will really introduce that world. It's really beautifully written. Also, it has a lot of stunning recipes inside that we've actually tried one, the roasted cauliflower soup, and it's absolutely delicious. There are all beautiful recipes, and what Belinda says about these is that they're really easy to make, so you don't have to be some clever chef to have something really good in your diet. And also they're all linked to having a healthy hormonal balance. So that's that's pretty much all I need to say about Belinda. We want to get straight into it. Belinda, before I ask you my first question, my mother used to say that hormones play the role of a conductor. She says that, if you have really good, healthy hormonal balance, then you'll have a symphony and harmonious sounds. But on the other hand, if your hormones are out of balance, then you have discord and noise. That's something that always stuck to my mind, and I always thought, and I'll ask you to comment on that. So tell me, Belinda, what are hormones, and what role do they play in our body?
Right. So when you basically, like, your health is optimal, everything's kind of working in harmony with each other. So your hormones are these chemical messengers that give, messengers and take messages around your body to tell different organs and different kind of like body parts to be able to actually kind of like do their job. And so absolutely, when all of that's kind of working in harmony, we tend to kind of be in our best possible health. And particularly for women, like, so much of our lives are related into our hormones. We're having these cyclical changes happening all the time. With men, you kind of have this fairly, bit simplistic, but fairly sort of steady stream of testosterone. Middle-aged men get a bit of a drop, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, poor them, that sounds terrible. And for sure, that's terrible. However, women are kind of going through these cyclical changes, every month, and even sometimes kind of more frequently. And so everything being in balance is actually, really important.
Really important. So what are some of the first signs that you can detect when there's a hormonal imbalance?
There really are so many things. So things from, mood changes, energy, skin health, digestion. The period symptoms are kind of a little bit more obvious, I guess. So you might be having shortened cycles, long cycles, absent menstrual cycles. There can be period pain, changes in sort of period health. So I would sort of be saying that if you're looking at, how to identify that kind of hormonal issue, is that it will nearly always kind of cyclically change through the month. So skin might be worse before period or around ovulation, or bloating might be worse, before period or with period, and then the rest of the time it's kind of okay. And that's how you kind of get a good idea about how linked your symptoms are to hormones, because there will be those sort of cyclical changes. Be aware, though, of just looking at, I guess, changes premenstrually. I think we're all very aware of that. So before the period, mood, breast, skin, energy, most of us are like, oh yeah, I'm getting my period, or that person's, yep, that makes sense. But also to mid-cycle, a lot of people will also get an array of symptoms. So it's absolutely kind of worth tracking them and writing them down, so that you can be like, hang on a second, that was kind of I've been having a headache mid-cycle for the last 3 months. But sometimes when I say to people, does it seem cyclical? If it's not with their period or just before, they're like, no, it's got nothing to do with my period. So be aware that we've got, these hormones kind of, dancing around each month. It's not just the period that is where we get some hormonal changes.
Yeah, right. And if you suffer from these hormonal symptoms that you notice, in your opinion, who should you consult? Like if they're really extreme, should you see a doctor first or a naturopath? And
it really depends on what the level of your symptoms are. So if you're sort of like, do you know what, I've been getting some period pain, I'm quite exhausted, I'm getting my skin's breaking out a little bit. To be honest, a regular doctor, probably that doesn't have that much to offer you except for the pill. So you go, you tell them, they offer you the pill. A lot of people get annoyed. But they don't have something else to offer you. So what you've got to remember with the GP and the doctor is their degree is called Bachelor of Medicine. So they're trained to diagnose disease and prescribe medicine, and they're usually pretty excellent at that. For some reason, we've kind of expected them to become this holistic healthcare provider that should be able to give us all these other options of kind of what to do. And so I think it's often a question of, like you said, like knowing where to go, but I think we're often looking in the wrong place and then being annoyed that, it's like being annoyed that your cat doesn't want to go for a walk with a lead on it. It's like, well, you should have got a dog, So the cat has its own benefits. So the doctor does have its benefits. And so if the symptoms are quite extreme, like, say, for example, period pain that is interfering with daily activities, you need 2 or 3 days off work every month, it probably is a good idea to speak to a GP to get a referral to a gynecologist and have that escalated. But certainly a naturopath and or nutritionist. Some people also really get a lot of good results from acupuncture. So there is a whole kind of array of these sort of allied and complementary healthcare providers that are, trained and specialised in these sort of things. And, we see it every day in the clinic, like huge changes of people that are like, whoa, like, my cycle was an absolute mess. Mood here, skin here, bloating here, pain. And then it's like, oh my God, I feel amazing. And so, medicine is most often not required, but I also wouldn't want anybody to self-diagnose or miss any red flags that a GP might be able to say that's indicative of a bigger problem.
Yeah.
It's also an issue of expense as well. So whether that's you as an individual working out where the best spend of your money is, I guess naturopaths, I want to say we're expensive. We're not expensive compared to specialists, but it is money, and then diet changes and supplements and things like that, which is the main reason I wrote the book and created the app, because I wanted people to be able to have that information in the one place of what they could do at home to start with. Yeah. Look, and to be honest, if a lot of people read that and implemented most things, they probably half of them wouldn't even need to come. But, a lot of us also do require somebody in your corner to help to create the steps of change, because it's easy to know information and can be difficult to understand how to actually integrate that into your life with long-term change. Yeah. So a lot of what I do, I guess, is also that kind of almost counselling, I guess, of, what to start with first, what's the most important, how we can make an easy way of it, cement that change, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's really, really important. I think it's always great to have like a coach or a mentor.
Yeah.
In your life, definitely.
Yeah.
Protein balance, so good fats and something fresh. What does that mean to you?
So that's, I guess, you're alluding to what I call my healthy eating mantra. Okay. So what that basically means for me is that each time that you eat, or most of the time that you should eat, it doesn't have to be completely strict. There's 3 things we need with each meal and most snacks. And that's a source of protein, some good fats, and something fresh. So I guess what I like to do is to focus on the foods to have rather than just the foods to avoid. If you're like, don't have as much sugar, don't have as much bread, don't have as much, cake, all you hear is sugar, cake, bread, oh, yum. Your brain starts to think of those things. Whereas when we look at what we need to have rather than just what we should have less of, we tend to get a better outcome. So protein is one of the things that is very commonly lacking in the diets of many people. Absolutely affects mood, energy, skin, hormones, immune system, general health. So we definitely need protein to kind of be there. We need some good fats for our hormones, for our skin, for our hair, for our nails. We're made up of fats. And the something fresh is vegetables or salad. Now, we should be getting about 4 to 5 cups per day, which sounds like a lot, but really is 2 cups lunch, 2 cups dinner. So, it's absolutely kind of possible. But, I think what's not there in the protein, fats, and fresh is probably as important as the things that are there. So the starchy carbs are probably the bit that's not there, the bread, the rice, the pasta. It's not that you can't have those things, you can. It's just that they need to be the accompaniment to the meal and not the basis of the meal. And I think that part is really important for all of us to kind of understand, because if they're what I kind of call shut up food, so it fills you up and it shuts you up, but nutritionally isn't really doing anything for you. So, you can have some toast, Vegemite toast, and then wonder why you're hungry again later. So then you have a banana, then you're still hungry, so you have a few crackers, and then you're like, gosh, I'm gonna have another piece of toast. Like, you haven't had protein, fats, or something fresh. You're just filling yourself up with those starchy carbs. So not great for your gut, not great for your immune system, not great for hair, skin, nails, hormone. We need the stuff that actually provides nutrition.
Yeah. And the more you start eating the good nutrition, the less you are attracted to these
100%. Yeah. When you get enough protein, so if you say I've got sugar cravings, if you then make an effort to get the right amount of protein spent through the day, you won't crave sugar. When 30 grams of protein hits your gut wall, you are satisfied, right? So, it's annoying, but it's like you might think, oh, I do like chocolate, but you're not like, oh, I need a chocolate.
Yeah.
And that's why kind of having that protein through the day makes a phenomenal difference.
Yeah. And what would you say is like some of the best sources of protein for you?
Yeah. So good question. So protein basically is like meat, chicken, fish, eggs, nuts, seeds, legumes, tofu, soy products. Now, if you're a meat eater, you eat anything, then the highest quality sources are going to be those animal sources, because you get the most protein out of the smallest amount of food. So for example, you're meant to be getting at least 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight a day. Now, I don't let anybody weigh anything. I think that's the fastest way to insanity, but we get a bit of a general idea. So say, for example, you weigh 70 kilograms, you should be getting a minimum of 70 grams of protein a day. Now, for example, 50 grams, excuse the numbers, I hate numbers too, but 50 grams of meat, chicken, fish is 10 grams of protein. So an average serve is about 150 grams of meat, chicken, fish. Boom, there's 30 grams of protein like that. On the flip side, you're looking at more vegetarian options. A cup of lentils is around about 10 grams of protein. So you'd need 3 cups of lentils to get the same as a piece of salmon. Yeah. So you're looking at a lot more carbohydrates, a lot more food. I mean, look, I love lentils, but I'm going to struggle to eat 3 cups in the one sitting. So it's a lot more food for a lot less protein.
Yeah.
So it's not that it can't be done vegetarian-wise, it absolutely can. 2 eggs, for example, is 10 grams of protein. So you could have 2 eggs for breakfast, a salad sandwich for lunch, and fish and veggies for dinner, and think, no, I eat heaps of protein. But you've got maybe 40 grams out of your 70 that you need for the day. And you're like, oh, hang on a second. So it's good to just get a bit of a gauge, because I know obviously you're, in the beauty industry, we're made of protein. right? So whether that's animal protein, vegetarian proteins,
Yes.
I support vegans and vegetarians and flexitarians and whatever you want to be. It's not about that. It's about getting the amount of core nutrients that your body actually needs.
Mm.
And so when you're lacking in protein, because of our cell walls are full of protein, that's how you get healthy skin turnover. It just makes such a massive difference, not only mood and energy, but all that kind of physical stuff as well. And when you're having more protein, and when I'm talking more protein, I'm not even talking high protein. So high protein would be 2 grams plus of protein per kilo of body weight. So for that 70-gram person, it'd be 140 grams plus for the day. So I'm just talking about the minimum your body needs before it starts eating its own protein sources away and breaking down skin and muscle. And yeah, so it's actually, what I'm talking about is the lowest amount of protein that you should get for the day.
Yes.
And then possibly have more. But because when you have more protein, you crave sugar less. When you're looking at beauty, for example, the people that have good skin, sure, there's genetics, are people who have not had a lot of sugar and alcohol and cigarettes for their whole life, right? Not just people who started a week ago. They've had protein and vegetables have been there, that protein, fats and fresh, if that's been their general diet for a long period of time, you will, you would know, guys would know better than me, you will see it in the skin.
I was going to say, you can tell someone if they drink a lot of alcohol, for example, on the skin, or if they're a smoker.
Yeah.
You don't even have to ask them. You
know.
Right away.
Yeah. And so sugar creates these things, they're called AGEs, or advanced glycation end products. Now, the acronym for advanced glycation end product is AGES, right? AGES, and sugar ages you. So sugar creates these sticky things that kind of that make your skin less elastic, less plump. And the opposite of what we all want.
On the skin, you see these cross, all over the face.
Yeah, and it's under the skin, so it just comes out as wrinkles and crepey skin and things like that. So it just makes such a difference, not only to your hormones, your mood, your immune system, everything, but on that physical level, absolutely too.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, does weight influence, like if you're overweight or if you're underweight, how your hormone balance works?
Great question. Yes, absolutely. So too little body fat can result in not enough estrogen being produced and can result in a condition called hypothalamic amenorrhea, where you actually lose your period. So some people are naturally just tiny. That's fine. If they're eating well and they're moving and they're just those people that don't put on any weight, sure. They will sometimes have poorer egg quality when you look at fertility, often because it's related into estrogen level. If you've got people, often women, when we're talking about periods, always women, but often women under eating, not eating enough carbohydrates, over-exercising and losing too much body fat, that affects estrogen, and they will get hot flushes and wrinkly skin and dry vagina, hair can fall out, no period, low bone density, not ideal at all. On the flip side, when you're looking at people who are maybe carrying a little bit more body fat than somebody else, what we end up kind of seeing is that body fat actually creates more estrogen. So that adipose tissue or that fatty tissue creates estrogen that often gets converted into testosterone in the fatty tissues. So we end up with this kind of high estrogen, often a high testosterone picture that really can affect periods, hormones, blood sugar regulation. Because when I guess we're talking about hormones, a lot of the time we're talking about estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. They're the ones we think about, the reproductive hormones. But insulin's a hormone, thyroid hormone is a hormone, so they all have this, like the interplay, the orchestra that you mentioned earlier, all those things kind of come in together. So certainly excess body fat does that. The tricky part is that the body fat also affects the insulin levels, make it harder to lose the fat. So it's a nasty cycle to get into, and it's why people find it so difficult. Well, it's one of the reasons why people find it so difficult to lose weight.
How does the hormone affect we already touched a bit on that, on the look of your skin, the youthfulness?
So I guess, if you think about a woman postmenopausally and the skin changes that you might see there. So, you know, the skin becomes more sallow, more crepey, there's less oomph in there, less collagen, less moisture. So that's estrogen being very, very low. So if we've got estrogen being very, very low, we can have that affect in a premenopausal woman as well, and maybe the advanced signs of kind of aging. We can also have the estrogen being too high, which can result in, you know, breakouts and oily skin as well. And then you've got high testosterone. So that high testosterone is often related into the high estrogen, because as I said, the estrogen can be converted into testosterone in the tissue, and sort of vice versa. So what we'll often get with the higher testosterone levels, very common in women with polycystic ovarian syndrome, that they will often have a little bit of excess facial hair, oilier skin, perhaps acne, often a little bit more abdominal kind of obesity. And the irony of excess hair growth where we don't want it is that you often get thinning of the hair and hair dropping on your head where you do want it. And it's like what men get, right? So a lot of men with high testosterone levels will lose their hair, but are often also quite hairy in other places where they're like, gosh, you know, my chest is super hairy, my back, and I'm bald. Like, what's going on there? And it's often related into kind of testosterone as well. So absolutely, those hormones and their balance of really makes a big impact. And it's probably that higher testosterone that makes a big impact. And I'm sure what you guys would see with acne and oily skin and you know, blackheads and things like that.
There was a diagram that I'd seen of the woman's body shape. It's sort of straighter when there's more testosterone and more curvy when there's more estrogen in the body. So it even affects, you know, the way your body looks, I guess.
Yeah, that probably is a little bit more, absolutely, like that can be a thing. But you can also have that more curvy body shape and high testosterone. They will also too potentially, you know, get a testosterone blood test and say it looks fine, but you can have an increased testosterone receptor sort of sensitivity, maybe in the skin, on the face and the back and things. And so their testosterone levels can look okay, but sometimes we've actually got to go symptomatically as well, because there can be things that we can't measure. So the science, I guess, of hormones is often called endocrinology. And then we've got this kind of newer science coming in called intrachronology. So it's a way the actual hormones, they might be being produced in good numbers or bad numbers, but how are they being uptaken by the cells? You know, so you can have iron, for example, but are you absorbing it? So it's simplistic to go, oh, no, you're having iron. It should be fine. You ate 4 steaks last week, but are you absorbing it? So you can have your testosterone levels might look okay, but, you know, are they over or under being expressed with receptor sites and things? So it's not all as black and white as it seems on paper and blood tests.
So that's why, again, I would imagine it's really important to have someone like a naturopath who sort of goes through with you this, you know, the changes and see what's working and what's not. And
yeah, absolutely. And it, you know, it does take that little bit of kind of experience as well, where sometimes it is really kind of clear cut, and sometimes you need to sort of speak to somebody like specialists and things who actually really are looking at, okay, I've been told everything's fine on the blood test, but these are my symptoms. And remembering that when you're looking at a traditional medical model, they're looking for the absence of disease and the absence of illness, not always like what would be the optimal, or, you know, it's like, oh, well, you know, your hormones are fine, they're fine on paper, and you go like, oh, okay, good, and you go home, and then you think, well, hang on a second, but I'm still getting breakouts, I'm still getting really bad PMS, and I get a headache every month. So something's not right. So it's great that there's an absence of a diagnosable illness. Amazing. That's what we all want. But how can I now improve those symptoms to improve my quality of life?
With something like, say, a hormonal breakout, what would be some of the things that you can try to do
Yeah.
sort of.
Yeah. So there's some really good, look, dairy, like I think probably a lot of people know that dairy and skin are not best friends. I'll be taking out all dairy as quickly as possible if you're getting a lot of hormonal breakouts. Now, sugar will also affect that, much more difficult, to kind of take out. But again, going into that protein, fats and fresh philosophy, huge difference.
Yeah.
Most people are not getting enough water. You need to be drinking at least, for someone who hates numbers, I've got a lot of numbers today, so sorry guys, at least 30 mils of water per kilogram of body weight. So if you weigh 70 kilos, that's 2.1 litres. Now, every cup of tea, coffee and alcohol is like minus a glass of water. So you need to increase based on those things. And if you're exercising, you should not count the water you drink at exercise. That's just replacing what you've lost. So that's a really important basic. Are they getting enough protein and vegetables? Are they drinking enough water? And, are they having too much sugar? They're huge. I would consider a dairy-free trial for at least a month and just see how it kind of goes. Yeah. Spearmint tea, amazing. So spearmint tea has been shown just 2 cups a day to help to reduce excess testosterone levels, but won't reduce them below what they should be. So if you're like, oh God, I'm not a naturopath, I don't know what their testosterone is, but it seems oily skin, breakouts, it seems sort of consistent, you can safely prescribe 2 cups of spearmint tea a day. Right. I also tend to add nettle leaf tea in there as well. So nettle leaf tea is really good for the lymphatic system, great for lymphatic drainage, really great for the liver, got some trace nutrients like silica in there. And so that's going to basically help. So I'd be saying 2 cups of spearmint and nettle leaf tea together, amazing. They might be wanting to look at, like a zinc supplement, like that's probably one of the biggest things. Zinc, vitamin A, you probably have to be a little bit more careful with, but certainly I use a lot of vitamin A with my clients as well. So I think that's a good place to start. Mm-hmm. Most people think they're getting enough protein. Most people think they're drinking enough water, or they know they're not enough, but it's not they don't keep track of it. So it may be worth getting them to keep a bit of a diary for that.
Yeah.
There are also apps, things like MyFitnessPal, which I hate because I hate counting things and I hate people weighing and counting and getting obsessive about food. I want them to be a bit more intuitive. But if you're really kind of suspicious of it all, it just gives them, you don't even need to go through it with them, obviously, if you're not qualified, but gives them an idea about how much protein they actually are getting and how many sugars they actually are getting. So you definitely don't want to do it forever, but it certainly doesn't hurt to do that for a week. And go, let's just get a baseline of what it kind of looks like.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're not meeting those sort of recommended amounts, maybe that's when you need to see a naturopath or a nutritionist for a bit of extra help.
I recommend that you do that too. I use the Fitbit, and in the app it has an element where you can record how much water you have and also the nutrition, the what you've eaten, and then it counts, how much fat was in that food and how much calories and so forth. So it's not just on calories; it's about all the nutrients.
Yeah.
And if you do that just for a month, you don't. Or you said a week, but I suggest even a month. You get to see, okay, I'm eating, this much protein or that much sugar, and sugar is a bad one to certainly get a hand on. So that's a really good advice. How does it affect the libido, and can you change that whole?
Can you switch that up? Yeah, wouldn't everybody like to know the answer to that question? So look, libido is massive because I do a lot of work for fertility and people trying to have babies. I mean, this question of libido comes up every day because people are trying and finding it very difficult. Other people aren't, amazing, yay for them, but a lot of people are. Certainly, if testosterone's low, that can affect libido. Yes, absolutely. If your estrogen's low, that can affect libido, absolutely. So at ovulation, our estrogen levels rise, and that's why we tend to have a little bit more desire around about that time. So estrogen is very important for libido. However, the question for libido for me is always, if the two of you are away on a beautiful holiday, somewhere tropical with nothing to do, no family to visit, are you more interested in sex, right? The answer is nearly always yes, right? Which means it's not really a question of libido. It's more just a question of I guess, your circumstance. Now, This is very simplistic, so forgive the unpolitical. It's probably not politically correct, but let's just run with it anyway. So men need to generally use sex to connect, right? And women generally need to connect and then have sex. Right. So there's an issue there. So, you know, you can be with somebody running around all day, packing kids' lunch boxes, finishing off with work, you get into bed, and your partner might be like, oh yeah, like let's have one. I don't know, probably who says let's have sex, whatever. That's the insinuation. And you're like, oh my God, I don't even feel like sex. But what you're probably not thinking is, I don't feel like sex because I'm not even in my body. I haven't even come back to myself yet. So how could I even know that I wanted to have sex? You know, I'm still finishing the email. I'm worried about the kids' like lunch boxes for tomorrow because I didn't have enough fruit to put in them. Blah, 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 blah. Too much, so many tabs open on this computer that I haven't even had a chance to see where I'm at. But a lot of us are like, I don't even feel like it. I just don't even feel like it anymore. So that's not necessarily libido. If you feel like libido is lacking and is an issue, and you can make some time to connect before going to bed, you know, watch a show together without being on your phones and computers at the same time, go for a walk, play around of, you know, have a quick laugh, whatever, doesn't have to be serious, you know, have a cuddle on the couch. Doesn't need to always lead to sex, but it's going to be, for most people, at least 50% more likely that you'll feel like having sex when you get to the bedroom. So there's a huge libido issue, but I don't know how much of it is pure libido.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So if there are some men out there, you know, foreplay.
And also, not even just foreplay, it's connection prior.
That's right.
You know, so in the kitchen, asking about your day, like not doing the lunch boxes, let's listen to some music, let's listen to our favorite song together before we go to bed. It's only going to take 5 minutes. Sit on the couch. This is amazing. Go to bed. Like, it's that feeling of kind of connectedness that is very important.
That's really interesting.
We have a lot going on, which is why there's a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety things. You know, we do a lot of things at once. It's a superpower. It's amazing, but we're not very good at learning when to shut it off. The real superpower is when to shut it off. And that's why you'll find a lot of women and men, but more women with adrenal fatigue. You know, we've run on adrenaline and cortisol and stress hormones. We're doing this, we're running the business, we're listening to the lunchtime talk, we then go pick up the kids, we grab the dry cleaning, make dinner, we clean the house, we feed the dog, we, you know, pack the lunch boxes, we quickly sleep for a second and we get up and do it all again. Not saying men don't do that, they often do. They're often much more, testosterone is much more geared into task orientation. So while men are washing up, sure, maybe they're thinking of something else, but they're often going, oh, I wonder if that plate's dirty enough. Yeah, do you reckon Belinda would, no, that's good. Yeah, pop it in there. Women often, so many, we've just like, you know, we've changed the world, right? Like so much is happening in that time. So it's about trying to kind of do one thing at once a little bit more, because adrenaline and cortisol, which come from our stress hormones, and that can be happy stress or bad stress, definitely affects our reproductive hormones, our cycle, mood, health, energy, food choices, then skin, hair, nails as well. So, and fat gain. So if you've got a lot of cortisol, that can actually affect and increase abdominal obesity. So it does, you know, back to the orchestra, it's all linked.
It's all linked. It's amazing, isn't it? No, thank you for that. It's really, I love the fact that it's not just the focus is on how your hormones are going, but also the setting is really important.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard about chocolate cravings with a lot of women. Is that linked to hormonal imbalance?
Look, quite often. I mean, look, there's been a lot of research on this, and it's sort of come up with very sort of mixed reviews. There's a bit of a school of thought that like chocolate contains magnesium, and we often are, most of us are low in magnesium, and magnesium is very important for hormones, and it often drops in the premenstrual kind of time. So are we wanting chocolate to get some magnesium? Now, yeah, maybe. If you're low in magnesium, you will crave chocolate more, absolutely. So you could try supplementing with magnesium through the month and see if that reduces the chocolate cravings. It's quite often that your protein levels and the intake requirements, if you're not getting enough, then you're going to crave chocolate. So often before our periods, we tend to crave more carbohydrates, and maybe that's going to be at the expense of protein, which then means that low protein is now we're going to crave chocolate and sugar. So it's all a little bit of a kind of a chicken and the egg thing. Sometimes it's also because of energy, so energy does tend to flag in that time. And then there's a little bit more awareness of now what they call, I guess, menstrual cycle awareness, which, some people are into, some people not, whatever, which is sort of looking almost at the stages of your menstrual cycle, like seasons, so if you look at the pre-period sort of time as more of like a winter kind of thing, whereas like you actually just are going to feel more tired, not to a ridiculous can't go to work phase, but rather than just pushing through and making yourself say yes to everything, continuing your HIIT class, like wondering why you feel tired, emotional and burnt out, but go, do you know what, for that few days before my period, I actually do feel a bit more insular. I'm not going to go out with my group of friends on the weekend. I'm just going to have a one-on-one coffee date with my best friend. I'm not going to do a HIIT class. I'm going to go and do a yin yoga class. Actually, do you know what? I'm just going to actually just go for a little bit of a 20-minute walk, down by the park or the beach or whatever you've got. Slowly, maybe you're not going to call it exercise, but you're still moving. I'm going to have an early night. You probably find that actually going with it rather than fighting it and sort of pretending that we're men that just have this level of testosterone all the time, which helps with mood, energy, weight loss, immune system, backing up after a big night, like literally testosterone, like if you could sell that, amazing. As women, we don't want too much of it. Men, you don't want too little of it. There's always a balance. But I think we try to kind of keep with this, like we should be going all the time, but not going, actually, our hormones are kind of going like this. If we could realize that around ovulation, we were the most energetic, love doing a HIIT class. Yes, let's plan, catch up with all my friends. Yeah, all 20 of them, great. I'm going to talk to them all at once. I feel amazing. I'm going to go and do X, Y, Z. I'm feeling more creative. So I'm going to work on my other passion projects, whatever it is. And knowing that, enjoy that time for what it is, and then enjoy the other time where it's like, I'm just going to sit on the couch and watch an episode of my favorite show with a herbal tea and love it.
Yeah.
So the more we understand our bodies, the more we can go with them rather than fighting them and then wondering why we crash.
Yeah. Be kind to yourself. Listen to your body. And
listen to your body. Yeah.
How vital is exercise and sleep and relaxation linked with your hormone?
So important. Like literally, you go and do those things, then you can't, what I say to people, you can't out supplement your adrenals. So if you're releasing too much adrenaline and cortisol and stress hormones, that's damaging on every single level. So sleep, women tend to need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep a night, usually around 8. A lot of people compromise sleep to finish a work document, like, clean up the house because they've been at work all day and they've got kids and whatever. Like, try not to utilize your sleep time. Try to see that as kind of like sacred. It's really important. Exercise is also extremely important. Doesn't have to be going out and killing yourself at a boot camp and a HIIT class and whatever. Walking and 15, 20 minutes of Pilates most days is probably enough for a lot of people. If you want to do more, but it's just about moving your body. A lot of us, myself included, are very sedentary jobs, and we're meant to be moving and exercising, whereas like, oh gosh, like a lot of us aren't even finding time for the both. And that's going to help with your period, pain, skin in terms of kind of sweating, mood. When you've exercised, you tend to make better food decisions as well. Most people don't go from the gym to get a hot chips on the way home. I'm guessing maybe some people do. You tend to be like, that felt really good. I'm just going to go buy some salmon and some veggies. I'm going to come home and do a bit of a cook up. Great. You're probably a little bit more motivated in those times. So there's a huge kind of flow on effect of when you're feeling good. But stress management is massive. So whether it's doing a meditation app each day, slowing down, learning to say no, focusing on sleep, not doing a million things at once. So a lot of us feel like when we've got a lot of cortisol and adrenaline, coffee will increase that and make it worse. So if you want to have one a day, have one a day. But if you're like, I'm getting into 2 or more, not great for skin. The acidity isn't great for the skin, but also keeps you doing more. But it's like a false sense of energy. So you're just burning out your adrenal glands.
So my last question is, I know that for beauty therapists, they one of the main skin issues they treat a lot is pigmentation. Now, often we find that when a woman is pregnant, she may have there are lots of reasons why she may have a pigmentation outbreak, the sun, etc. But pregnancy is often one of the main causes. Is there anything you can do to prevent, or is there anything you can do to make that?
To make that better. Yeah, look, it's a very tricky one. I mean, look, certainly limiting sun exposure. It's about the high levels of estrogen stimulating the melanocytes in the skin. So you can be sort of, well, a naturopath can help to work through the liver to help to kind of reduce that, but not 100%, because you want the estrogen to be high, so you're not actually moving any of the hormones. Right. It happens probably as well a lot, maybe even the most, on like when people are on the oral contraceptive pill, because of the sort of fake estrogens that are in there. And so it's probably, I mean, you guys probably see it all the time. It's absolutely a big side effect of women being on the pill. So it's tricky to kind of change, because yes, we can work through the liver. In a pregnancy situation, you want there to be estrogen. Certainly, you know, having a couple of tablespoons of linseeds a day can help to get rid of excess estrogen from the body, making sure people are having good bowel movements. So one of the ways we get rid of excess estrogen, and when I say excess, that's estrogen that's being used, but if it's not getting rid of out of the body, we can end up with too much, is via fibre in the bowel. So if that person's not having a regular bowel movement, which happens a lot in pregnancy as well, then we're actually not getting rid of that excess estrogen. So really focusing on fibre, water, movement, you know, to get bowel movements kind of working well, and maybe even some liver teas like the nettle tea and things on a non-practitioner level. That's what you could sort of start with.
The bowel movement once a day, would you say? Is it
yeah, at least once a day is fine. If they go more, great, but like, you know, it should be at least daily.
Well, thank you for that. That was fascinating. I could talk hours with you, Linda. Now, I just want to remind everybody, now, if you want to get one of these books, all you have to do is ask some questions. I see we've got some questions already. We've got our beautiful Cheesa Westcar. She's asked thoughts on sparkling, not soda, she says, sparkling water, where a client refuses to drink plain water.
It's so funny, isn't it, when people refuse to drink water, and you're just like, okay, like, why don't you refuse to sleep, eat, poo? Like, it's just a basic thing you need to do, right? Like just get it into your head. So sparkling water, when they add the sparkles to it, you know, they're adding phosphorus, which depletes your body of calcium, can affect bone density. It's absolutely better than no water, right? So yes, I guess, like, you know, it still counts as hydration, but because of the impact of the other minerals on bone density and things and gut health, I wouldn't be drinking that all the time. You could try doing some like cold herbal teas, or like fruit infused water. So not heaps of lemon and lime, because that affects talk to dentists and they hate that effect on the enamel of the teeth. But popping, you know, quarter of an orange and half a strawberry and a bit of mint in a jug of water, I mean, it does actually kind of taste quite nice. Right. But, you know, if they won't drink water, then, I mean, it's better than nothing.
Than nothing, right.
Yeah. But also, too, that sort of reframe of kind of like, okay, well, you're here, you're paying me a lot of money to help to improve your skin. I can't put hydration into you. So I can keep working topically and give you Plumpy this and whatever you guys have, you know, moisture and whatever. But, you know, just go, that's totally up to you. You can also look at it as in, I love the refusers, because I've had people that refuse as well. It's like, what's going on with that? If you don't love water, fine. Get a 400 ml tumbler, have a big glass of it when you first wake up, one again when you get home from work. You're at least at 800 mils, and then you can have a couple of herbal teas and a bit of sparkling, and you might get up to that. But so maybe give them some strategies of just being like a tablet, you just got to swallow it. Just have it like all at once, rather than drinking it through the day, which is probably more ideal. But if they refuse, they're not going to want to drink it all day long.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you so much, Cheesa, for asking it. I know that personally, I wake up and the first thing I do is have a glass of warm water big glass actually, and that just gets my kidney going. It's one of the best things you can do. And as you know, in the beauty trade, when we're talking about, you know, the hydration of the skin, the water molecule is too big to penetrate the skin. So the only way that you can really hydrate the skin is by ingesting the water.
Yeah.
No other way. But I hear that so herbal teas count as a glass. So if I have a cup of herbal tea, that counts. Okay, that's great. I've got a question here from Sophia. Is back acne a sign of hormonal imbalance? If so, what could work to get rid of it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It often, there's a couple of things with it. It is often a high testosterone and receptor kind of issue. Obviously, you guys know all the topicals, exfoliations and things like that. Some people don't have good cell turnover. Get rid of dairy. Consider zinc as a supplement. Definitely the spearmint tea and the nettle tea. I always recommend a spray of that Thursday plant. You guys are the topical people, but I always recommend that Thursday Plantation tea tree antiseptic spray. It's meant to be for just spraying on a cut when you've been camping. Amazing in just changing that bacterial balance, because there's an overgrowth of different types of kind of bacteria, and when the sebum is there because of the testosterone, maybe the sebum's being overproduced, but there's still a bacterial kind of like balance issue there, so that can be helpful as well. And certainly trying to keep sugar as low as possible and increasing natural antibacterials in the diet like garlic and onion, leek can be good as well.
Right, excellent. Sophie also asked if she's worrying about fasting. Does it have a negative or effect on the reproduction abilities or blood sugar levels?
That's a really good question. Love it. Thank you, Sophia. Absolutely. So all the fasting studies to date are done on men. Women are not small men, and we get excluded from studies regularly because of our hormonal cycles. We mess things up, basically. We're not a good, you know, we're not stable enough, I guess, in our hormones to get really good kind of like results, which up until now and even now means that they're like, I'll just disclude them from the studies. It's like, well, no, like work it out to get the studies with women as well. So it's starting to kind of get a little bit more, but is still slow. I'm a big fan of fasting. If you feel good, you feel amazing, do it. It can help blood sugar levels, but if you've got anything thyroid or adrenal going on, then you're really wanting to be avoiding it, because you're running on cortisol instead of food, petrol, nutrition for that period of time, and that can really affect your adrenals and your thyroid. So if there's no issues there, you're fairly kind of safe to start. It can have a positive and negative effect on reproduction. So if it's helped you, say, for example, with polycystic ovarian syndrome, excess weight, to lose weight, which reduces high testosterone, high estrogen levels, and gets you ovulating again, it's the best thing ever. If you're doing it though and you don't need to be, that can then put you into that state of going, hang on a second, is my body fasting? Is there a war on? What should we be looking out for? Oh my goodness. And it can actually inhibit ovulation and implantation as well. So for people who are overweight, needing to lose weight, it's a great thing. For people who are trying to conceive, and I mean, I do intermittent fasting most days, not trying to conceive, regular cycle, it doesn't affect my energy levels later in the day. If anything, it probably makes them better.
Right.
But so what you want to do with all these diet things is make sure that what fits them in the head is what fits them in the body. So, you know, you could think, oh, I want to be vegan. I like really resonate with that. But if you lose your period, you get headaches, you're constantly tired, and you break out in acne after a year, unfortunately, what your head wants is not what your body wants.
Yeah.
Other people are like, oh my God, paleo sounds amazing. And they're constipated. They actually put on weight. They don't feel good. And it's like, oh, damn it. Like, that's not the effect that I expected or what a lot of other people have. But I need to listen and go, right, that's not actually working for me. Yeah. I need to consider sort of something else. So with the fasting, it's a bit like that. You know, if they're doing it for just for general health, you need to make sure that they really are feeling good, eating well, and it's not affecting them hormonally.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer of the, you know, giving your body a rest from food. So, you know, eating, maybe giving 12 to 16 hours rest, and that's something that you can do quite regularly without going through the fasting. And I think that with fasting also there's the preparation before you start fasting, and after the fast. If it's, say, you're doing a 48 or 72-hour fast, what do you do before and what do you do after, which is really important.
Also, just to clarify, my answer there was in response to, I'm assuming that you're talking about intermittent fasting, which is that 14 to 16 hours a day. I wouldn't be recommending anything longer than that unless you're very experienced.
Right. We've got loads of questions. So we've got one from Marie. Thoughts on pigmentation in menopausal women?
Good question. Yeah. So, I mean, look, in that sort of situation, it's probably a different type of pigmentation to the high estrogen sort of system. It can, again, be just the changes in the skin and the collagen levels in kind of menopause. So making sure that, again, like minimal sugar, adequate protein, adequate hydration. But I wonder if it's pigmentation per se, or if it's sort of sunspots and scarring and things like that that are kind of becoming hyperpigmented. So it's more of an inflammation type of pigmentation rather than a hormonal, perhaps. And if it is that inflammatory type of kind of hyperpigmentation, fish oils, vitamin E, lots of greens in the diet, lots of water can be helpful.
That was a great question, Marie. Thank you. Sally is asking, I'm seeing a lot of teens with stretch marks and hormonal issues. Do you think there is a link with the increase of vegan diets becoming so popular?
Yeah, 100%. Look, it's a lack of protein basically with the stretch marks, but also too, it's very much a result of their feast and famine, kind of lifestyle that they tend to kind of go with. And so, stretch marks is usually a low zinc, low essential fatty acids, and low protein. So there are three things you're looking at with kind of stretch marks. There's also a genetic element there, but those three things are big. So in a vegan diet, you're going to have low zinc, low essential fatty acids, and low protein. Wow. So absolutely. And then it's that sort of fast weight gain and weight loss. So a lot of their hormonal issues, are to do with diet. A lot of them are to do with too much sugar, not enough protein, not enough vegetables, but also too much cortisol from too much screen time, and potentially not enough sleep, which is when our hormones kind of regenerate. When we were teenagers, there was nothing to do. There was nothing left on television. How many books can you read? You go to sleep. Nobody, your mum said, get off the home phone, don't drag it back into the lounge room. That's kind of all there was. You weren't up in the middle of the night doing all these things. So it's very, very multi kind of faceted, but certainly the protein and the vegan diets is a thing, Yeah, and it's hard because they're ethically vegan, and that's kind of beautiful, but it's easier to maintain your house that is already built of bricks rather than, as you're building your house, compromising on the quality of some of the materials that may not lead to the most structurally sound house. Right. And there's my thoughts on extreme diets in people that are not fully developed.
Yeah, fantastic. One more question. I think that's all we have time for. Carolyn asks,
I think maybe the tanning is a typo. If you ask to see a professional and maybe they recommended to reduce dairy. Yeah, typo. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, that's okay. So if you ask them to see somebody like a nutritionist, do you mean? And then they've recommended to reduce dairy, how long till you see? I would be saying at least a month. Look, it's ideally 3, but they're not going to hang out for 3. So if in a month, what I would be saying though is they're not going to have completely clear skin. What we want to see is less inflammation, so less redness, less new breakouts, and potentially less sebum production. So if it's moving in the right direction after a month, but it's not perfect, keep going to see what the effects can be in 2 or 3 months. If in a month it's like, oh my gosh, no, I'm having the worst and biggest outbreak and things, it's going to be hard to kind of keep them motivated to do it. So it will nearly always be better if they give it up for 3 months, but difficult to keep them motivated if they're not seeing any differences. That's why it's really important to go, okay, wow, so there have been less breakouts. We've still got heaps to work on with the redness, with the scarring. You are still certainly getting some breakouts, but those sort of deeper, more angry, painful ones, you haven't had any new ones of those. That's great. That's amazing. That's what we're looking for. So you need to reframe You know, skin's always the slowest thing to heal. Well, internally, naturopathically, I don't know what you guys sort of think, but I mean, acne is like not, you know, it's not a 3-month proposition to change. So you got to try to kind of make sure that you're keeping them motivated in what has kind of changed, because it's not going to suddenly be that they've got beautiful, clear skin in a month or 2 months or 3 months, unless you guys are doing something like amazing, in which case text me your numbers.
Yeah, I think that's actually the problem with skincare products manufacturer. They kind of clients want a beautiful, radiant skin today.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that it's actually an organ, and you need to lay some really important foundations of health and nutrition to have a beautiful, healthy skin. There's no evading it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think everybody got a lot out of this conversation. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. And if people want to find out more information, they can simply go to your website. It's belindakirkpatrick.com.au. So Belinda is Belinda, Kirkpatrick is KIRK. And then Patrick, PATRICK, belindakirkpatrick.com.au. You'll find all her courses, all the books, everything about Belinda. If you want to hear more about hormones and how maybe help someone with their fertility problems and so forth. It's really been a great joy. As I say, I could talk to you and listen to you for hours. Thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you for everyone for joining in, and yeah, all the best with all of your work, and yeah, thanks for having me.
If there's any more questions that come through to me, I'll send them to you. And
okay, great.
Maybe you let me know. All right, you take care.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thanks for lovely words. Okay, bye Frank. Bye.